I pause and ask myself, why is it important? Is it for her or is it for me? And if it's for me, I let go because that's not fair. But you always have to ask yourself, why? Why are you trying to, to have the company use a specific software? Why are you fighting them to see that, right? It's like, is it because you want to prove something for yourself, or is it something because you want the company to grow? You have to be authentic with yourself and give yourself the answer and be fair to yourself and to the people you work with.
What I do is inconsequential. Why I do what I do is I get to shorten people's journeys every day. What I love about our hospitality industry is that it's our mission to make people feel cared for while on their journeys. Together, we'll explore what hospitality means in the built environment, in business, and in our daily lives. I'm Dan Ryan, and this is Defining Hospitality. This podcast is sponsored by Berman Falk Hospitality Group, a design-driven furniture manufacturer who specializes in custom case goods and seating for hotel guest rooms. Today's guest is a creative and strategic interior designer. She's a LEED GA certified professional and a sustainability advocate. She has over 15 years of experience. She's worked with luxury interior design firms, branding agencies, and some of the world's largest hospitality companies. She was recognized by Hotel and Resort Design South as a future leader of 2025. In my opinion, she is a current and future leader already in 2025. She received her MBA while working and in between her second and third child. She's the director of architecture, design, and construction at Sonesta International Hotels. Ladies and gentlemen, Anna Peretz. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for having me.
It's so wonderful to have you on. And I've been looking forward to this for a while, and especially after our recent call, just kind of catching up and getting on the same page for this. But one of the things that is really amazing about you is just how much you've accomplished, all this while building a family, growing your career, getting an MBA. And it's really interesting how you wound up at Sonesta, because if I look at, I think you're the third or fourth person I've had on from Sonesta. And what amazes me about Sonesta is how, if you look at Sonesta before the pandemic to after the pandemic, I think before the pandemic, my numbers might be wrong here, but 50 hotels, let's call it, plus or minus. And now you probably have 12 to 1,500 hotels. And all of that requires a new brand, growing, and like the whole building out the infrastructure to, I don't know, to keep everything directed towards the North Star of what Sonesta is. And something that you said earlier really struck me, because I feel the same way too, oftentimes, where if times are slow, or we're in like somewhere in a real estate cycle and there's not a lot of things happening, there are still some things, but sometimes I feel like, this one U2 song is my favorite. It's called Running to Stand Still. And I just feel like, sometimes I feel like standing still, it just does not sit well with me. And I have to do other things. I have to be creative. I have to start another business. I have to start a podcast. I think I'm just wired. Maybe it's my ADD. And I really picked that up from you. And I want to talk about that and kind of where that comes from in your story and arc. But before we do that, what does hospitality mean to you? How are you drawn to it? How do you define it?
So it's interesting. Like, if you would have asked me this same question 5 years ago, my answer would be completely different, right? It's something that we develop, that change as we grow, as different things happen in life, personal, and then during our career, everything changing the way we see hospitality. And today, you asked me the question, I'll answer. For me, it's really divided into 3 different sections in a way. So it's all about care and caring, and I'll explain in a second what I mean. It's about authenticity. And then the third, I think, point, and I think one of the most important one, is memorable. And if we speak about the care portion of it, it's about, hospitality is all about caring about people, right? Either if they're your guests, if they're your coworkers, if they're your friends, family, anyone that comes into your life. So from the personal lens, I would say for me, I do care a lot about people. Like if somebody will call me, I'll answer the phone. I'll call them back. I'll remember what they say, right? What's important for them. It's really, you really care for people. And when you step in a hotel, you want the employees to care about you and about your experience. And if we speak about authenticity, and one of, very dear for me, because of, I guess, because of my different different languages, different cultural, different experience, where I lived, where I grew, which I'll talk a little bit more during this podcast. But especially in the luxury segment, it has to be authentic, right? It's like you can fake it. The guests that come to the hotel that stay in the luxury segment, they know. They know. They may not know if you use natural marble or Caesar stone, for example, but they will know if the details are not there. And they will even know if the operation is not there. So you have to be really authentic about it. And then the third item here that's really defines hospitality for me is the memorable experience. So when I walk to a property, and even before I walked into the property, that's something I've learned in Marriott, working at Marriott, it's that first experience that starts and begins outside of the property. That arrival experience is important because it's what you see. And it's as you walk into the property, is what you see and what you smell. And I can tell you, for me, one of my favorite property is the Edition Hotel in Times Square. And the reason for that is that, you come in, it's in the middle of Times Square.
Which is madness.
Madness, chaos there, right? Like it's chaos and the smell of like the fast food.
Captain America, Elmo, dirty Cookie Monsters. It's terrible.
It's like the smells and like everything's going nuts there. And then and even before you enter, they open the door for you and you almost like it sucks you in. And you sucked in, and the first thing that overwhelms you is the smell. And then you see their huge globe, right? They have this unique feature, and you're the Edition because you can smell it and you can see it. And it's memorable because for me, I wanted to take it back home. I want to remember it when I go home. So I wear Labo now. I wear their perfume because it's you want that experience to continue with you. You don't want it to stop. It makes you feel good. Because for us, hospitality meets us in best times in life and also in bad times in life. The best times in life is, wedding, honeymoon, getaway. And bad times is when you try to, you need to disconnect, you need to heal, you need just the clean water, the clear water to disconnect and really heal your soul. So it's with us in good times and bad times.
I love that. Okay, I've brought this up before in my podcast. I don't remember when, but I remember when I was in 7th grade, a kid in our class passed away. He had an aneurysm while he was rock climbing. Horrible story. So I don't want to go down that bad road. But what really struck me is when we all got together in that, like, in the assembly room or the gymnasium. I forgot. It might have been the dean of the middle school got up and spoke and said, he brought up this quote from this movie Starman, which I don't think anyone has ever seen, but it was like an alien comes to Earth. And he's basically said, the alien said, what's amazing about humans is that oftentimes or every time they're at their best when they're at their worst. Right. And that really struck me in such a tragedy, but we all really came together, and it obviously didn't bring him back. But I've seen it many, many times when people are at their worst, humanity is at their best. And I think we lose sight of that a lot in the news. But I agree that hospitality shouldn't matter when you're at your best or at your worst, right? Because it's all about, to me anyway, it's about that human connection and that warmth between people. One of the things I'm really curious about with you, you mentioned, and we didn't dig into it, so I'm actually really excited to hear, but you said that you started your degree late and then you got your MBA late. Like, what was happening? Like, why did you say that? Like, tell me more about that. I'm curious.
I'll start from the end. I feel like I'm always saying it because of who I am. It's really defines who I am, and my past. Um, and when I say I'm gonna start at the end, I'm gonna try quote Isaac. He was the founder of Mango. Um, and he was an immigrant. He was a Jewish immigrant, a Jewish Turkish Sephardic Jew. And he said that success is all about adapting and all about learning, because he never forgot his roots. You must always think as an immigrant. You always adapt and you always learn. And, I read it recently and I was like, oh my God, this is so right. This is who I am. I'm an immigrant.
Can I interrupt for 1 second and just say, I love Hamilton, the musical. I went to go see the screening of it with my daughter, and I'm always struck by, I've seen it multiple times, and recently I saw it in Central Park, and that line, now there's like political amplifications about it right now, but when that line comes up, it's like, immigrants, we get the job done, and everyone goes crazy. And I totally agree. I think that, my parents and grandparents would always tell me about whoever way back came here and worked and did all this. But it's like, as an immigrant, you come to a place and you have to figure it out. Like, there's no, it kind of ties into what you were saying before about standing still does not necessarily mean that you're going backwards, but sometimes for certain people wired certain ways, it definitely feels like you're going backwards. So in that light, I feel like it's a crucible moment where you're forced to go forward. But carry on. I just wanted to reminisce about an excitement in the crowd.
So I feel like in my life, I always had to bridge the gap, right? Because I came late to the US. I came when I was 20 years old. I went late to school because I had to work and pay for my degree. And I had, I was here by myself in a way. My parents, and I'll go back, I'll go even the beginning. My parents, my mom had me when she was about 17 and a half, 18 years old. She was married to my father, who was from St. Petersburg, and my mom was from Moldova, so USSR back in the day. And she couldn't wait to get out of her house, right? So she got married. That's what they used to do. Very young. It still doesn't, I had my kids when I was 30, so it doesn't sit with me well. And they got married, and back in the USSR, being a Jew was very hard. So they decided to move to Israel. The gates were open either to Israel or to the US. And then as they were in Italy waiting to go to US, the gates were closed to US. US was not accepting anymore. And then the gate opened up to Israel. So they moved to Israel. They had another daughter, my sister, my youngest sister. I'm the oldest.
So I'm sorry, but between your mom, you, and your sister, you must all look like sisters. Is that fair to say?
My mother is the same age as my best friend. I would say that. Yeah. That, which I wish I had my kids earlier in life so I can, enjoy them longer, but that's another story. And then we moved to Israel. My dad kept learning, studying. I don't know how many degrees he has by now. He's an engineer. And I still remember to this date the construction documentation, the big construction documentation on tables rolled. Now, I did not think about that my dad was an engineer until a few years ago.
Oh, so they were his like rolled up actual blueprints or drawings from his engineering documentation. Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah, but like big. They used to be very big. And then I even remember when he just got that big computer. I don't know if you probably remember those that we used to cover to protect from dust. Probably the young audience doesn't even know what I'm saying here. And I remember, and I don't know if it was AutoCAD or what software it was, but he was drafting. And I was little and I was playing with his computer and I turned off the computer. And I still remember until this day the traumatic experience because he lost everything he was drafting.
Oh no.
Yeah, there was no cloud back in the day. So, but I can tell you that up until this day, even though I work on cloud, I still try to save. I still do control S, control S.
It's really funny. My dad, at one point, he had where he worked, he had a like a telex machine, which was even before fax machines. And they said it was like unbreakable. It was this huge like thing that sat, it almost looked like a stand-up piano. And it had a little typewriter head that would go back and forth. And the people who sold it to him, I don't know who it was, like Xerox or something. They said it was unbreakable. And I remember I went into the room where it was in his office when he took me to work one day. And then somehow I broke it. And then everyone was really amazed. He was pissed. But the people from the company were like, no, it's supposed to be unbreakable. I don't actually remember the events happening, but it was a fun story he shared. But
You still remember it. We added to our trauma bag.
oh my God, the trauma bag. I love that. You're giving me so many good things. I feel like this is a good therapy session for me.
That's good. That's good. I'll tell my therapist that she's doing great. My parents got divorced because my mom was very young. I mean that's very very natural, I guess. My mom then got, and I'm saying this because this is really with who I am. My mom then, we were Jewish. I'm still Jewish. My mom then met her husband, who is an Arabic Muslim guy in Israel. Um, another traumatic experience because we were Jewish and we moved to Israel to be Jewish. And then my mom went and got married to an Arabic Muslim guy.
I feel like you're setting up like the Israeli West Side Story right now.
Right, because that's all. I mean, that's not the only story there. This is what's happening. Right, the second language in Israel is Arabic. I mean, I've learned Arabic in school. Despite, the war, there is a lot. There is a lot of peace in between because it's the same thing. Um, and then I was exposed to the Muslim culture. And when I say Muslim culture, to the colors, to the patterns, to the language, to the foods, the smells, it's full of everything, right? It's just like, it's this hurricane of colors, and then they speak fast, and everything goes from 0 to 100 there. And it's just across the street from where I grew up, right? It's a village across the city I grew up. So, but still at home with my dad and with my grandma, it was very Jewish. So now you have my dad, all about education. My mom married to a different culture, had 4 more kids with him. And then to the sweetest part of my life was very dear to me, my grandma's house. And my grandma was a Russian Jew who would always, she's still with us, who would always, light the Shabbat candles and teach me all about Judaism. And it was very warm there. And her house was, full of beautiful patterns, but very subtle. And she would put wall covering every year, a new wall covering. Every year, a new sofa. She'll rearrange everything. She'll renovate her kitchen. And I mean, until this day, she does that. And again, when you're a child, you're not even thinking about all of it. And then life happened. I went to boarding school. I have to say, boarding school in Israel is not the boarding school in the US. It's for the other side of people. I wasn't paying for it from my trust. I did not have trust.
You trusted your family is what you have. Yeah.
I trusted myself, I'll say then. I guess I trusted myself. And I was in boarding school. And then, I worked when I was 16, I started working in a restaurant, hospitality, right? And I I wanted to make sure everything is right for the guest. Like the plate is clean, the service is good, I'm smiling, I'm all this great person. And that was my first experience in the hospitality industry. When I was 20 years old, I moved to the US. My father was already here with his second wife, with my sister. Um, they moved here without me, without my sister. That's another story. Um, and I moved here and I moved to the city. I moved to New York City. I had 4 jobs. 4 jobs. Yes. I lived on the Upper East Side.
Wait, all at once?
Yes. So, because I wanted to live by myself, I wanted a dormant building, I wanted a good neighborhood, and I was like, "No, I'm gonna make it happen." So I had my like 9 to 5 jobs, and then I had babysitting. I was babysitting after work. I had during the weekend, I was waiting tables in Soho in Cafe Bari. It's no longer there. That was so much fun. Do you remember? There was like Leonardo DiCaprio used to be there. It was really really fun. In a corner, I think there was like Nike there. Now, very cool place. That was the weekend, and then I also did real estate. I got a couple of buildings that I was the only one who could rent. Yeah, in Spanish Harlem.
Did you ever, like, how did you recharge at that point?
You don't need to recharge when you're in your 20s.
I guess you're right, but I don't know. I feel like I would need to, and I don't know. I feel like I would. That's insane, but insane in the best possible way. I don't know if I've ever heard of anyone having 4 jobs at once living in New York City.
But that's the only way to do it, right? I wanted my life. I knew what I wanted. And I said, I'm not going to compromise. Like, I'm going to work hard, right? That immigration voice in my head. You keep adapting, you keep learning, you keep working hard. There is no, you ask me, do I need to, I don't remember that I needed to recharge. I'll wake up at 5 a.m. and I'll go to the gym.
Oh, my God. Okay. Wow.
But like, that's what you do. Yeah, it was very cold. And
How did I not know this about you before? See, this is why I love these podcasts so much. This is awesome. So, okay, but I have a question on all of that. And I want to get back to your arc. So I know a couple other people like you in our industry. And how do you balance not just our industry, but also in my life as well? Not many, but a few. Most people are not wired the way you're wired, right? So as you're building a team and people, especially like the younger generation, there's this whole work-life balance thing, which I understand, but I also knew that there were countless all-nighters that I had that I needed to get done to get things done. Am I doing that? I don't remember when the last time I pulled an all-nighter was. Maybe because I'm older and there's really great teams and we're better organized, but you're wired a certain way. As you build a team around you, most people, unless you select for someone, you want someone wired just like you, but you might work at a different level than the team that you're building around you, right? So how do you balance that so that like there's not potential for resentment, et cetera, et cetera?
it's a daily challenge, Dan.
Is that why you have a therapist?
Yes.
Good. To diffuse and understand.
To really have somebody say it's okay, it's normal. Because, I'm going to speak about authenticity, right? I work in a corporate. In a corporate, you got to have that poker face. That's what all about corporate America is in many ways. But then I come with all my spices and I say, why do we? And I want to learn about people. I want people to learn about me. And then, it's hard, right? Because like people want this and I want this. And like it's hard to meet. So I had to drop myself to a point where people can digest me better. However, I'm not giving up to who I am and what I am. I'm not.
Well, I'm not saying that you should ever, and I don't know, I would never sacrifice who I am. But I also think that having that drive and it's, I think what it really is a super clear vision of the future state, right? And it's hard to get there, but that's what drives me. And I also think that that super clear vision of the future state is also like, to use an airplane as a metaphor, that I think is the airspeed that allows for lift for the whole team, for everyone around me, my peer group.
It's about, and I always say this recently, I am going to be stubborn about my vision, but I'm going to be flexible about the way I'm going to get to it. And that's all it takes, right? That's all it takes for your team, for who you are, for, I work at Sonesta, which I came from Marriott, which was very calm and, very structured. And then I got this opportunity with Sonesta, which I'm very thankful for. And we had to build a lot, and we're still building.
Yeah, I can't imagine. To go from 90 or 50 hotels to, I don't know what the count is now, it's over 1,000 plus or minus, but like, I can't imagine how you build the scaffolding around that and like have it make sense, but it seems to be working.
But it's not only that. We had, back in the days, about 200 or so managed hotel that they own and manage. And then they broke into the franchise business, and that was completely different sister, right? They always fight. They fight about the same things. The goal is the same.
Stepsister.
The stepsister. Okay.
Same family, stepsister.
I don't know. My kids fight like it's the end of the world about everything. But I think it's really understanding, and it goes back to that immigration mantra in my head. You have to adapt. You have to learn. You have to, you have to stand clear about your vision. You have to be flexible. And Sonesta is all about flexible, friendly, and fast.
Oh my God. Is that really the 3 Fs? Is that a thing? Oh my gosh.
But it's amazing because before I took this job, I didn't even know it, but this is who I am. I'm very flexible, I'm very friendly, and I'm very fast. So it was almost like, it was a match from heaven in a way.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, okay, another thing. Working with many visionary designers and architects, so you're changing my thinking here, because I would say that I've encountered, I call them uncompromising visionaries, right? On projects. And I respect the vision and where they want to go. They're uncompromising in how to get there. And when you throw a schedule on that, it increases the odds of the wheels coming off the bus, because I believe that there's a lot of ways to get to that vision, but you have to be open. Like you're saying that that flexible part, I think, is missing from a lot of uncompromising visionaries. So I think uncompromising visionaries get so much done, and they kind of, I don't know, like reshape the paradigm or move the paradigm. But I find with many of them, they're missing flexibility, which makes their teams, the projects, their clients, it just makes things harder than it needs to be. How can you be so uncompromising in your vision? Like, how hard was it, or what did you do to get to build that flexibility in? Because that could also, as you're building a team and working with a team, that could also put off a lot of people too.
So I failed, and then I built it again, and then I fail, and then I build it again. You try every day. I heard a lot of no's in my life, which is supposed to discourage you, but it's actually encouraged me. We're hiring now. And our team is small, so the dynamics are very important. Like, there are some things you can teach, right? You can teach some skills, but there are a lot of things that you can teach. And I think I've interviewed several people. We haven't, made a decision yet, but I think one of the things that's really important for me is the person has to be authentic, because that you can change. You can change. You can teach somebody. It's impossible. And I've been interviewing, and so far the most favorite person is that person who is very authentic, who you can see has the excitement for hospitality, who you'll throw something at and it's going to work hard. It's going to make it happen. Maybe he'll fail. but he's going to make it happen. I think like as a leader, you have to give the tools and the guidance and then let somebody else to do it. So you'll bring, and I don't know how you say it in English, but you'll bring the horse to the lake, but you're not going to make the horse drink the water, right? All it you can only do. I don't know what's the proper.
I don't know. I just used that term this weekend and I was like, wait a minute. You bring the horse to the water, but what does that mean? Because, oh, and I guess it has to be thirsty if it wants to drink.
It has to want to drink. So, like it has to. You can make it drink, but you can bring it there. So, and I think that's really, when we influence younger generation, when we help those younger designers, it's important to give them the tools. It's important to show them the right way to support them, but you can do the job for them.
True. So, okay, but as you're interviewing, how do you screen for that? I'm always, to me, or the way I would do it, and I've done it, is it takes me a really long time to get, or it took me. Now I'm very clear on what my values are personally and as a company, but it's all about asking people questions about, tell me at a time when you adapted and you improved. Tell me about a time when you had to say what you mean and do what you say. Tell me about a time when you were tenacious. Tell me at a time when you were organized. And then I can ask questions around my values and kind of dig in. And usually it's pretty clear when someone's not in alignment with my values by asking them the questions around my values and kind of digging in.
But you see, you are asking them a very structured question, and they're already prepared to come and answer those questions. I mean, some companies ask the star questions, right? Situation. I don't remember the rest TAR, but very structured. So yeah, I'll ask a couple of those questions. But what I really want to hear is when I'm touching them and I'm asking them, what does hospitality mean to you? What do you know about Sonesta? What excites you? Why do you want to come work for us? And you ask the question and you let them speak. You listen.
Yes, I agree. So that's where I let them speak. I used to interview people and I would talk a lot. This is not in podcast interviews, but in regular interviews, like job interviews. And I would wind up talking to try and sell them on working with me. And then I read this book and met this guy. It's called Who, and his name is Geoff Smart, and he's amazing. But it's a wonderful book. I'll put the link in the thing here, in the show notes. But he said, and there's this other book called Top Grading that he was involved in as well. I believe I got that story right. But there's a torque question. And now I think I'm giving away the secret. But basically, after talking about all those things, then it's like, hey, who was your manager at whatever position? How do you spell their name? Okay. And then it's like, torque is threat of reference check, right? So then I'm like, okay, so I heard everything that you say. When I talk to Allison, whatever, what will she say? Like, how will she say that you exhibited these things, right? These values. And then you can see a shift. And it's that moment where you see the shift where you know that they're prepared, that it was just a prepared, canned answer, or they're speaking from their heart and they really mean it. And they have empathy towards their former manager or even sometimes current manager.
Yeah, you wanna touch people, right? Our hospitality is about touching people. And I think that the person, I'm like that. I'll ask a personal question. I'm not going to ask, are you married? You have kids? But I'll ask something. I want to touch them in a way so that they give me the true them. Now, I don't know if it works or not. It's a mirror of who I am, right? That's who I am. I'm authentic. I want to ask a question. I want to say something personal so that usually somebody else gives something personal. And then there is like this click that starts. I know that it's many times very hard in corporate America because this is not how the traditional way, but that's who I am. And that's my spice. That's what I bring. That's the difference. I interviewed at Marriott with Lori Walling, great leader in our industry. And when she interviewed me, I knew I got a job because she said something around, "You're the spice we're looking to add to all our spices." Um, and and I remember it and I appreciate it because I want to work where where my team sees me and appreciate the spice I am. If I open my wings and it's for some people it's distracting, they can't see, I'm not going to close my wings. I'm going to move to another team where I can spread my wings in a way. And the I want the people to come works for our team to do the same. I want them to spread the wings. I want them to. I'll say something that many people don't like now. I want them to unlock their potential. Because that's something I strive every day for myself. I'm not standing in place. I should be standing in place and rest a little bit.
Sometimes it's okay.
Sometimes it's okay. Yeah, I know.
It took me a while to figure that out too.
I know. I should. Yeah. Yeah. I should print it and put.
Hey, everybody. We've been doing this podcast for over 3 years now. And one of the themes that consistently comes up is sustainability. And I'm just really proud to announce that our sponsor, Berman Falk Hospitality Group, is the first within our hospitality industry to switch to sustainable and recyclable packaging, eliminating the use of styrofoam. Please check out their impact page in the show notes for more info. So one thing I want to say, as far as that's been really helpful for me, and I'm curious how you see that. So you've established that you have this kind of uncompromising vision, a North Star, where you want to get to, how you want the team. And then there's a gap potentially between others and you. It could be other stakeholders. It could be team members. It could be employees. It could be clients. It could be owners. It could be franchisees. One of the useful things that I found is this idea of compartmentalization, in the sense that, okay, I know where I want to get to. I have a whole list of things with each person I'm speaking with. But it's oftentimes, you can't get everything done. So I find a parking lot where you capture all of those ideas, but then having a system about not letting those just wind up in a desk drawer. How do you bring those out and make sure that you're not letting them go, because you have to capture the ideas, but compartmentalize them so that you can ultimately get to your journey? How have you found that compartmentalization can help you?
So I went to school, I went to Marymount. I got my first interior design degree. I knew that I wanted to do hospitality. Before I got my degree, and while I was in school, I worked for Restoration Hardware. That was luxury residential. And then I've done luxury residential before I went to school for many, many years. And then I knew that I want to do this hospitality segment because that's a goal I put for myself. But I knew that there is a way to get to it. So I said, okay, I'll get to it. Let me learn the skills I need to get to there, right? So I've never put it in a parking lot. I just work towards it while working, while doing what I need to do. It shouldn't be waiting. It should be a goal. You should have a plan to get to there. You shouldn't be fear, because it's another thing you add to your plate. It's there. It's in the background. I don't put things in parking lot. If you put things in parking lot, you never go back to that parking lot, because they're almost in the first level, but you're already in the fourth level. You're not going to go to the first level. You only want to look up and go next to the next one. So they go with me right there. I keep them on my train. And I'm not afraid of time. I have something printed here in my office then that I printed for my husband right before, because my husband is similar like me, but on steroids probably. Um, I printed this saying here, and I have it here in my office, in my home office. It says, never give up on a dream just because of the time it will take to accomplish it. The time will pass anyway. And it's a big saying. I printed it for my husband because he went back in the days, he wanted to get a law degree. Um, and he's like, should I do it? Should I not do it? He was still in school. I remember when we had our first child, and I'm like, yeah. And I printed this for him. And I printed this for him and for me because I really wanted to get an MBA. And of course, I was like, this is not the right time to get an MBA. I mean, COVID happened and I just got pregnant with my second child, MBA. But I said, I have no fear. I trust myself. You said I trust myself. I can do it. And so I went for it. And I said, what's the worst that can happen? Like, what's the outcome? And for me, failing has no, and I think that's like the Soviet Union thinking. It's like, you got to go, go, go. We don't quit. We don't fail. I told my daughter, I took her Saturday to gymnastics, and then I enrolled her also for tumbling because I want her to advance. And she was crying because it was hurting. Her body was hurting. And my my brain was fighting with me. Because I told her it's okay to cry. You can take a break, but we don't quit. We are the Peretz family. We don't quit. Now, it's a lie because the Peretz family will take a break. My Soviet Union family in my head will not quit. So I had to calm her down and stop and walk with her outside because she was really tired. But I don't quit. I don't stop. I'm not afraid of things. I always keep going, keep going, keep going. But it does gets to a point where you have to rest for a second because I never, I keep telling my husband, we've done so much and we're still doing because we have so much in front of us. We never stop to appreciate.
Yeah, that's a hard thing. It's a really hard thing. And it's something I always could get better at. And I try that. I want to go back to the dream, never give up on a dream.
Just because of the time it's going to take to accomplish it.
I've shared this a couple times, but I remember, I don't know when it was, like 2017, 2018, I did this vision board. And then 2019 was just a really tough business time, dark time. And I just remember finding the vision board and just ripping it up. I'm like, this is never going to happen. It was very dramatic. And then thank God this business group I'm in, they said in like 2021 or 2, hey, and I took a picture of it. They're like, hey, can you just like pull it out? Like pull out that vision board. Like, let's just all look at it. And then I looked at it and I'd since left New York City, moved to Connecticut, had bees. It was like my life became that vision board. It was insane. And that was a dream. And I didn't give up on it, but I wasn't like actively, that was the other thing. I wasn't like actively pursuing it. It just kind of happened because like, I knew that like in my truest sense of self, that's where this next step was for me. And I mean, it's pretty awesome. And again, going back to that uncompromising visionary idea, you have to have the vision first. And anyone, you don't have to be an uncompromising visionary to have a vision, but you do kind of have to work and future cast what you want that dream to be, right? Whether it's tearing out pictures from a magazine or writing it. I think that that's a really incredible exercise that everyone should take a moment and kind of in that idea of pausing and appreciating where you are and just taking a moment for that, but also like putting the work in to get clear on where you want to go and not so much for the sake of where you want to get to for the sake of getting there, but it's really thinking about your kind of true, authentic, spiritual, whatever you want to call it, self. And then how does that play forward into the future? Because it's not so much about money or things. I think it's about, and I'm learning this more as I'm getting older, and I wish I knew this earlier, but I guess that's why youth is wasted on the young. But it's really like, who is my real self and how do I just try and stay in my real self all the time and then think about my real self and what that future looks like.
You said you need to want it. it's not, you really need to want it. You need to be authentic with yourself. You mentioned that, and say, what do I want? And also, a question I've been asking myself many, many times lately, why I want it, right? When I fight with my daughter to dress to put on the pink dress and not the black dress, I I pause and ask myself, why is it important? Is it for her or is it for me? And if it's for me, I let go because that's not fair. But you always have to ask yourself why. Why are you trying to have the company use a specific software? Why are you fighting them to see that, right? It's like, is it because you want to prove something for yourself, or is it something because you want the company to grow? And it's, you have to be authentic with yourself and give yourself the answer and be fair to yourself and to the people you work with.
I agree. Well, I also on the why, I think that's another really important thing, and I'll put a link in there. But there's this guy named Simon Sinek. He did this TED talk, I don't know, 10 years ago or more, where it was like start with why, right? You don't buy Apple computers because they have a better processor, right?
I love that podcast. That's when I started to asking the why. That's exactly that podcast.
You buy Apple computers because all the people involved with it think different, right? That's their why. And I remember going through like a deep dive. It took months to figure out my why, but my why was really, it's all about shortening other people's journeys, which I say in this, but also making sure, which doesn't say, I don't think I say in the intro. I forgot. I stopped listening to the intro because it's like I've heard it so much, but it's making sure that they're cared for along their journey, right? And that journey could be anything. It could be making custom furniture. It could be having them over. It could be going on a road trip. It could be just having a meal with someone. It's really about making sure that they're cared for and obsessing over that. And that's my why. But it didn't come up right away. I had to just journal and journal and journal. And I created like a playoff bracket of all the things that really light me up. And I had them all fight each other to the finals. And it was really about making sure that others are cared for on their journeys. So it's awesome. And it's something that I think all of us need to consider. And so now I have a question. You have this unrelenting kind of work ethic, uncompromising vision. If a young girl's listening to this conversation between you and I, like what's the first step that they should take as far as clarifying all of that and like getting their vision clear?
They have to dare. They have to believe in themselves. And I know this, everybody's saying it, but they really have to believe in themselves. If I was to speak with myself 20 years ago, I would give myself a gift, and I'll give myself the book Let Them, which I recently read. It didn't teach me anything new, right? But it just kind of said, "Huh, that's right." I would give myself, my 20 years old, that book, and I will concentrate on me and not on them. Because as we kind of grow and try to climb, we always think about how people are thinking about us, how they're seeing us. And that's important, but not really important. Because if you are, collecting back into yourself and you are authentic, because, when we were preparing for this podcast, you said, just be yourself. We have to be ourselves to be the best of ourselves.
Well, I'll also say just be yourself. And then I said, I know you won't have a problem with that.
And I remember that when you said it, and I'm like, does he see me as someone that, it's you just mentioned it, but I was like, okay, then it works. It works. Then people see who you are because you're just being yourself. You're not trying to put this wall.
I want to just take a couple minutes here to think about like the growth trajectory of Sonesta, just bringing it back to the vocation, if you will. But and going with that idea of flexible, friendly, and fast, right? How has your entire career and all the different vocations that you have and all the different companies and everywhere that you've worked, how are you taking that life work experience and applying it to the team you're building and where you want to go? And what's the biggest hurdle from a design and construction perspective that you and your teams are currently facing?
So, everybody's facing the same thing right now. Financing is very difficult to get if you ever get to it. ROI is a big name right now. Owners are not renovating unless they have a return on investment. They're not renovating just because the brand said that's how it should be. Sonesta's competing with other big people with other big companies out there. And I think that what we bring in Sonesta is that we bring that flexibility, but we're not just saying it, right? A lot of companies will say we're flexible. Yeah, we really live by it. And it goes back to like the sustainability, because when we enter a property, the way that we're pipping a property is by its condition. So if the case goods are in good condition, we're not going to ask them to renovate and get new case goods just because they've been there for 14 or 15 years. We're going to look at the colors. We're going to ask to change if it's outdated, but if the condition is good, clean it, wrap it, do some lipstick renovation and open as a Sonesta brand. And it's not, I have to say, it's not because we don't care about our guests. We do care a lot about our guests, about how we are being seen. But we also, because we are owners ourselves, we also care about the owners. And we see it from that lens. And I think that's something that really distinct ourselves from other companies, is like we are owners and operators ourselves. So when we speak with our owners, we're wearing the same shoes they're wearing. And naturally, that's such a, it creates that connection, and so easy when we speak, because we're not just saying we're flexible, we're friendly, we're fast. No, we understand what it takes to make money at the end of the day. And our owners appreciate it. And I see it. I see it when I speak with the owners. I see, when I send a review, for example, I get a BD from an ownership group. Our comments are making sense to them. We're not just writing them, structure. It's not a robot writing. We say, we recommend this because then you'll make this. So we explain to them why we're asking for things. And then we say, listen, we're open to hear what, if you think differently, because you know the best. You know the best your guests, you know the best your property, you know the best the market you're in. So it's almost like we're collaborating with them. And it's not brand versus franchising.
So I have a question, and I, as you're sharing that, as far as dealing with different stakeholders, whether it's ownership groups, franchisees, and showing this ROI, I don't know very many designers or architects who got their MBA, which is the Master of Business Administration. As you learned everything that you learned in your MBA, what was the biggest surprise for you as a designer at heart, right? What was the biggest change in your thinking?
So I'm mentoring this girl now who just started her career, and she's a mirror of youngest myself. And one of the things she said, she told me, she said, I don't understand who pays for what, how the money comes. Like, I don't understand that. Like, are they charging by hour, by project? And I listen to her as she speaks, and it's like, it throws me back like 18 years ago, 15 years ago. And I say, I was asking the exact same question when I walked into my first hospitality firm. And I said, I don't understand who pays for this. Who pays for me to go on Pinterest and add nice pictures to the mood board? And for me to be the best of me, things needs to make sense. If something doesn't make sense, if I can't understand it, I can't go with it. And in order for the design and the construction to make sense, it had to be like logically correct.
From developing like a real estate asset that's in the hospitality segment.
Yeah, like how do you get to it? Who's pays for what? What's the stages? What's the end? Why would Sonesta, be a franchisor? Like all of that I needed to understand who makes what money and what stage, who's responsible for what stage, how does a company work. And that's why I went to get my MBA.
So, okay, but then you started when you were pregnant with your second child and finished after your third child was born, right? So at what point during that, how was it years? How many years?
Year and a half, 2 years.
Wow. Okay. So during that 2 years, as you're doing all the other things you're supposed to be doing and you are doing, at what point in getting your MBA did was there a light bulb moment through that process of studying and getting your MBA that, I don't know, like opened your mind or said, this now it makes sense. It clicks.
Yes, I took a few classes that's related to finance, which I hate. My husband would say you are financially disaster. That's why he's in charge of finance. Um, and I looked at his Excel sheet, which I hate so much because that's fighting with my designer and creative half of my brain. And, just the numbers made sense, like this is the profit, this is how much you expense, this is, contagious, like everything made sense, like the return on investment, like it just made sense on the numbers. And I said, okay, now I understand what it takes to build this hotel, to build a business. Um, and that was the point. That was kind of like the puzzle piece that was missing. That was missing also to that 20 years old girl who just starting her career in our hospitality industry.
So it was really like leaning into the thing which you did not like, which were the Excel spreadsheets, but then forcing yourself to understand them, because then it was, I don't know, I'm thinking it's the Rubik's Cube solved. Then you can see the big picture.
You have to solve the pieces in order to see the entire picture. And I was lucky enough to do it because I know one of the things that's really challenging coming from, at Sonesta, working with designers or at other company, is that they don't get the budget portion. They're so good in the design and the process and, develop something so nice and think about the guest, but they don't think about the owner. They think about the owner, but you give them a budget and they never stay within the budget because they don't understand the budgets. They know it's a number. And one of the things that would be really beneficial, especially where we're moving into kind of for our industry moving into with a lot of struggle with financing, is that if a design firm gets somebody that does the estimates, the finance, the budget structure, and the company doesn't, and the project doesn't get to a point where they need to do a heavy VE, because when you get to the value engineer portion, and I've seen it, the project would die because the asset management would say, this is too expensive for us. And that's an issue.
Yeah. Well, I also think that at some point, ownership groups currently are going to have to come to grips with their asset values. And at some point, like, I feel like everything's been artificially propped up since COVID, so that, I don't know, like the role of capitalism hasn't gotten to work through its system and flush everything out and get it to the point where people can buy and buy and sell and minimize risk, but maximize returns, and, find that like really nice point where it all comes together. How long have you been at Sonesta now?
This is my third year. I started my third year in the summer. Yeah.
So as you have your third year under your belt, and now you're looking to the future as you're building teams and dealing with these 1,000 hotels, like, what's exciting you most in all of that?
Seeing the company succeed, right? Because you're part of the story. You mentioned balance before. It's a hard work. You're not working 40 hours a week. You're always working. You're traveling. You're answering emails. You're doing some presentations. You're always thinking about work. Um, because you're building, right? You're building. There's no structure that's already exists. You're building the structure. You're changing. I always say, whatever I told you yesterday may change today because we're flexible, because we adjust as as the company moves. We move with the company, right? It's like a dance, and you have to keep up. It's like driving in New York City. You have to go fast. If you go slow, you get hit. Um, and that's a lot of work then, and it's a lot of balance, because I also have a family. I have 3 kids. I have 3 little kids. I have I always say that to people. I'm like, I have my career, I have my kids, and it's a lot of work with them now. And I'm also a wife to a Jewish man.
Yeah, you can't forget the wife part. Oftentimes I think, people lose sight of the couple at the head of it all, right? And it's really hard. There's so many other requirements. So how do you navigate that?
I start there. That's my priority. My husband is my priority. He's an entrepreneur, he's a businessman, he's a CEO and a founder of his company, and he's always going, going, going. But I make sure once a week we stop. Saturday night, it's our date night. Whether we go and get something local, whether we go and get something more fancy, it's our time. It's our time in the car. It's our time in the restaurant. It's our time together, where we speak, where we look at each other. Because I don't see my husband all the time, um, because the days are crazy. Um, and I stop and I listen to him and I look at him, and he does the same to me. If you don't, if you don't invest in your relationship, then don't be surprised that during your 40s it's not going to work. And then you start all this, blaming games, and you have to give to get.
It reminded me of you said earlier in the conversation when you were talking about your mom and dad divorcing. You're like,
They went to separate. Yeah, they went. What?
it's common. That's what happens. I didn't want to. I have this really great joke I tell all the time. But do you know what the leading cause? I think in the United States anyway, about 50% of marriages end up in divorce. Do you know what the leading cause of divorce is?
What is it? Now I'm very curious.
Marriage.
Right, because it's hard. It's full-time job. I wasn't joking saying I'm also a Jewish wife, because every Friday Eve, there will be a table set in my dining room where we all gonna sit for Shabbat dinner. We're gonna pray and we're gonna eat the food that I made. Now, ask me when between Thursday and Friday I did it. Some days it's very early on Friday. Some days it's very late on Thursday. Some days it's 4 p.m. on a Friday, 5 p.m. on a Friday. But you make it happen because you choose to do it, right? You choose your partner. You choose to give them, to keep watering them. You can dry out those areas and expect something to come out of it, right? It's like you have, and then same thing with your career and with work. And some days, you started with saying that I keep saying you can do it all. You can do it all, but you can't do it all in the same time. So some days I give in my work 70%, and then I'm giving my personal life 30%. And some days it's the other way. That's the balance. That's the dance you have to do.
We only have so many hours in each day, and it's how we choose to prioritize what we're working on. And I agree. It is like an accordion every day, or more like a scale or a seesaw, right? Because you only have so much. But with that, I love the idea of you, because in this conversation, one of the great images you painted were, it was going to your grandmother's house and she would light the candles. And I just got that feeling of warmth. And then I just got it again at the end here for your Shabbat dinner, and the candles and the feeling of warmth. And so I think with that, I will say Shabbat Shalom. And then, but I've loved this conversation so much, Anna. And if people wanted to learn more about you or Sonesta, what's a great way for them to get in touch and learn more?
Yeah, they can contact me on LinkedIn.
We'll put it in the notes. We'll also put in some Sonesta information as well. And I do so many of these conversations, and it's, I don't know, many of them, not a lot, but many of them are very therapeutic for, well, I'm all curious about all of them, but this is like a good therapy session for me. So I really appreciate this. And I know all of our listeners do, but thank you, Anna, for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
And I would want to thank all of our listeners and watchers. Without you, we wouldn't be here every week interviewing awesome people like Anna and hearing her story and being inspired by it. And also learning that not moving forward and standing still does not mean you're moving backwards. So I think that's a tension I need to work on with myself. So I thank you. I thank the listeners. Don't forget to like and subscribe and pass it on if you think someone could benefit from this. We'll catch you next time.